Hello, everyone, and welcome, Hoopheads, to Jersey Jump Shot, the first and only podcast dedicated exclusively to college basketball in the Garden State. I'm Jerry Carino. With me, as always, is my longtime colleague, Steve Edelson. And upon us is Rivalry Week. The Garden State Hardwood Classic takes place Saturday as Rutgers and Seton Hall meet for the 75th time. It's been an unpredictable and often unruly series, which of course makes it fun. And to tip this show off, we're taking a stroll down memory lane with two former players who were there for some of the hijinks of years past. Both of these guys have since gone into coaching basketball, which makes, of course, their insight on this great rivalry that much better. We're thrilled to be joined on the Jersey Jump Shot by former Rutgers forward Jonathan Mitchell and former Seton Hall forward Marcus Toney-El. Gentlemen, I'm glad you could do this. Welcome back to your roots.
Thanks for having me, Jerry. Appreciate it. Thanks, Steve.
Jerry, Steve, man, like Marcus, man, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. Humbled for the opportunity.
All right, let's get right into it, guys. I'm asking you for your most memorable Rutgers-Seton Hall series moment, one that still stands out all these years later. Marcus, you're shaking your head. Start us off.
Jerry, man, the most memorable moment is probably not my most colorful moment. It was my sophomore year, and to this day, I haven't seen Mike Sherrod since, but I would still tell him it was a basketball play. It was a basketball play. I swiped at the ball, and it went left. I went into the stands. The fans started punching me in the chest. My team came to defend me. I remember watching the video the next day. A fan took my headband off and started twirling it above their heads.
You ever get that headband back?
I never got the headband back. Fan probably trashed it, pissed on it, did whatever they did, set it on fire. But yeah, the most memorable for me is obviously I got kicked out of that game, man, in my sophomore year.
Were you scared, Marcus, when you were in the stands and people were grabbing at you?
I'm from East Orange, Jerry.
That's a no. That's a no.
I wasn't scared. I fought back, you know. But I'm glad it didn't take away the sting or the relationship, right? You know, it taints it for a little bit. But I think people, even by that time, knew enough about me to know that I wasn't like that hot-headed. Things just kind of went left. But I've appreciated the rivalry then and now, just as if I was playing in it.
Well, we're talking about it all these years later, so it's a good story. I got one more for you, and then I'll get Jonathan's moment. One more question for you, and that is the 2004 game. Now you guys go back to the rack 2 years later. Yep. You win a great game. Andre Barrett hits that shot from the block R, right? Like a 30-foot three-pointer. What stands out about that moment? That was a big game in that season for you guys.
By that time, I think we had Rutgers' number, man. And we if I'm not mistaken, Jerry, you're the historian on this, man. I don't remember everything, but we might have won the last 4 games against Rutgers at that point. Twice my junior, I think twice my senior.
Right.
And the first time we played them, we call that a smack fest. We blew them out. But you know when you go down to Rutgers, that's always going to be a close game. Rutgers could be 0-15, but when you go in there, you're going to get their best game, no matter what. And when Dre hit that three from the left wing deep by the hash mark, and he gave me one of these, I knew it was over.
Yep, 2 minutes left, and you guys did win by 2. All right, Jay Mitch, your memory that stands out most.
Well, I don't have a memory like Marcus, but my last year, Big East tournament at the Garden. Seton Hall was having a good year. They had a good stretch, and Mike Rice's first year, and we were trying to find our identity and help lay the foundation for him, and went into the Garden with nothing to lose, and ended up having a great game. We beat him in overtime, so I think that's probably my most memorable moment. But my record isn't so great. I looked it up last night, man. 2-5.
Now you did win a game at the Rock.
We did win a game there. Obviously, tough place to play, especially with the rivalry. But man, 2-5, man, it just don't sit well with me, man.
So all these years later, and that's a rivalry for you. Well, I want to ask you one other thing. If you remember the game, was that? Were you at the game where Hamide Njai got checked by Jeff Robinson?
Yeah, I believe that was my redshirt junior year.
And he rolled off the court and came back storming on the court.
Yes.
Yeah, that was when you were just transferred from Florida and you were sitting out.
100%. But that was Hamide's memory. You know, I can't speak for H's memory.
You were in the line, the handshake line, when the coaches started yelling at each other. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. Good old Freddie Hill.
A lot of bad blood. I'm sad. I'm not real. I shouldn't say sad. It's a little weird to report that everybody kind of gets along now with the coaching staffs. Times have changed. It was kind of fun when everybody hated each other. That added to it too, right, guys?
100%. I mean, because it was all recruiting wars back then too. I'm sure you know a lot of kids from the New York, New Jersey, Philly area was all trying to get involved with the Rutgers-Seton Hall recruitment, and now with the portal and NIL, it's all love, so to speak.
Yeah, it's definitely all love, man. I'll be honest with you, Jay Mitchell. It really wasn't a recruiting war. Like there was no rivalry back then. For me, Seton Hall was just clear cut better than Rutgers at that time, so it wasn't much of a recruiting war. But now with the players, like in my case, Hervé wanted to go to Seton Hall,
right?
And I chose to go to Seton Hall, so Seton Hall didn't recruit him. So now he had an issue with me, and that's what kind of carried over. And over time, like Jerry just said, you realize those things are just so immature. You know, they're childlike. If I see Hervé today, we see each other, like you said, it's all love. For years, I wouldn't go into Rutgers. I would not go back to the rack, whether it was a college game or a high school game. For years, I would not go back because I felt like it wasn't enough time going by that somebody's going to remember or say something. And now, as a grown man, I would have to defend myself. It's a little different.
100%.
At this age. So for years, I wouldn't go back. So maybe the blessing in all this is that one of my best friends growing up is Brandon Knight, and he's there now. So that's my past.
No, the two Seton Hall prep guys there, right? So that's the old connection. All right, pretty cool. So have you been back there, Marcus?
I've since been back to Rutgers. Hell, my high school team, we made it there for the state championship last year.
Immaculate Conception out of Montclair.
Yeah, when we ended up losing to St. Rose, which I think they might owe us a chip because apparently the kid at Nova, I forget the Belgium guy who has the brother. Apparently this was his 6th year of high school. I don't know. I don't know. But this is what they say. He did 4 in Belgium, 2 in Jersey. They beat us in the state chip. I think they owe us something, Jerry.
All right, Marcus is still filling the notebook all these years later. Steve, what do you got for these guys?
Well, I'm just curious. Why do you think this rivalry has been so crazy and unpredictable over the years? Maybe, Jay Mitch, you could start.
Yeah, that's a great question. I just think because, hey, man, two Jersey schools right down the road from each other. And again, it goes back to AAU. You know, a lot of us played against each other in AAU, and it just kind of rolled over to college, right? And of course, with that rivalry being such a big deal in that area, I didn't understand it. You know, being from over the bridge in New York. But then when I got to Rutgers, when that game was on the schedule, the staff, the community, faculty, everyone was just like, all right, we got to get this one. And then, you know, I start to do my homework. We start to watch old clips and films, and you're like, wow, okay, this is like a Carolina Duke kind of rivalry. And I just feel like the bragging rights, and now they have the trophy, which is a cool thing. I mean, I'm glad they didn't have that when I played because I wouldn't have had it long. But now just being on this side, especially being a college coach, I'm excited for it because I know the preparation and I know how bad that, you know, the brotherhood, the knighthood wants this win.
Marcus?
The rivalry is exceptional, man. And I'll be honest with you. Growing up, being from Jersey, I didn't know much about it until maybe my junior, senior year of high school, when I started getting recruited, and now you start going to that game, and then you start to see how serious it is, and it's almost like you're not indoctrinated in the state if you go there until you play that game. Like once you play that game, all right, then it's all good, but you have to win that game. So unlike you, Jay, I know I'm 5-3, so I'm on the plus side of this rivalry, but I think the beauty of the rivalry is that it never loses its buzz, regardless of who the coach is, who the players are, whether the rack is packed and the Prudential is empty. It doesn't matter, man. The fact that these two schools for so long are able to compete at a high level, like you said, for bragging rights to determine who's king of the state is a beautiful thing.
You guys played this game in the Big East twice a year, right? And then now it's a once-a-year non-conference game. What do you think as a player? Would you rather have it twice a year in the league, or do you think it would be better as a once-a-year December meeting, alternating sites?
I think they should figure out how to play it twice.
I agree. I
think part of the non-conference. Play it twice.
Home and home, same year every year.
Hey, that's amazing, because it was hard enough for us to get this thing saved to have once a year after COVID. They had a little breakdown, and boy, you guys would rather play it twice. It means more when it's home and home.
It does, because it's not fair, right? So, Mitch, I played in a Continental Airlines arena, right? That place is humongous. So even I think we might have averaged maybe 10,000 fans a game.
Wow.
If we took those 10, 11,000 and put them in a Prudential Center, that place is a lot louder. You understand, than being at Continental.
Right.
So for us, I would love it. But for you guys, what's the rack hold? 8?
8, right.
Yeah, 8.
Although they stuffed like 8,500 in there for the Seton Hall game.
It sound like 30.
Right.
So to have that game played only on our home court in a Prudential, let's say we get 15,000, it does an injustice to what I know the Rutgers fan base brings to the to Jersey Mike's.
All right.
I'll agree. I mean, I just know people show up for those games, right? Because the alumni, the boosters, former players, doesn't matter, right? Like whoever lives in the neighborhood, people just know that game means more.
9 straight sellouts, guys. 9 straight.
Wow.
This will be the 9th straight. Go ahead, Steve. What do you got?
I'm just curious. You guys played in such a different time. This season, 10 new players on the Seton Hall roster, 9 on Rutgers. You guys probably knew your teammates a lot better. How did that play into the rivalry? And because now a lot of the guys are just coming into it and may only be part of it for a year. Well, maybe Marcus?
You don't know what you don't know. You understand? And I think with a lot of the newness going on, these guys may just think they're in college, they're in the Big East, or they're in the Big Ten, and not really embrace what the rivalry truly means until it's too late. So this year, like I know these guys probably won't be there next year, right? Dylan and Ace. But let's say Dylan and Ace just said, it's a game, we're going to play. And Seton Hall wins. That means next year, they're a lot hungrier because it's a one and done. Now they're a lot hungrier to try to go out and get this win. So when you're walking into it and you really don't know what to expect, you think it's just another game. And under no circumstances is the Seton Hall Rutgers game just another game.
Well, Dylan is a Jersey guy, right? So he knows, right? He knows. And his brother played there 4 years, so he knows the importance and the significance of this rivalry in this game. And I'm sure Ace is well aware of the tension between the two teams. So I don't think that'll be a big issue. And again, I'm sure Coach Peichel, I'm sure Shah is telling the guys and talking about it. I mean, obviously Shah being a Seton Hall alum, I know it means more to him as well. So, and then B Knight, obviously being a relative, and I mean, it's all intertwined.
Sure.
I think there are some returnees on the staff and the roster, so I'm sure guys are talking about it. You know, Rutgers got the big win, opened up Big Ten play last night at home, and now they're going to watch the film and they're going to focus on Seton Hall.
So it's funny you mentioned Dylan and being a Jersey guy, Jay Mitch, because Ron Harper Jr. was at the game last night, and he walks into the press conference. And by the way, Ron Harper Jr. was an MVP of this game. So if Dylan wins MVP Saturday, will be the first time brothers have been MVPs in the series ever. But Ron comes in last night, and we're asking Dylan, and the first thing Ron brings up is, yeah, they dodged us that one year, the COVID year. So he's getting Dylan wound up about it, which was kind of fun, and that's kind of what it's about, right? Those are Jersey guys. So I want to ask you guys about the RAC, because this is where the game is Saturday. Give us a sense for what it's like playing there, how different it is as a visitor and the home team. I guess, Jay Mitch, you start with this one. When you're the home team and a rival, a big game comes into that building, what is it like that's different from other places?
So the games are always pretty good when in Big East played when I was there, but when that clock hits 60 and those doors open against Seton Hall, it's like tip-off, okay? You feel a buzz, you feel the energy in the building, and it's nothing like it. And when that thing gets rocking, as you know, Tony, when that thing gets rocking, bro, like, there's no better place to play. Like, it's one of the best home court advantages. And obviously I heard coaches' comments about the RAC. You know, I can't call it Jersey Mike's. The fans and the energy from the student section, right? Like, it's a tough place to play, man, especially in the second half when you're the opposing team and you have to go and shoot free throws that direction. You know, so I just think that it's a huge home court advantage, the RAC. And hopefully they show up on Saturday, which I know they will.
They're gonna show up.
Hopefully they're out there early, and guys are out there handing out donuts for the game. So,
Marcus, all the places you played in college, where does the RAC rank in terms of difficulty or noise or whatever?
It's definitely up there, and for the sake of this convo, I'm gonna tell you it's probably the best home court advantage. West Virginia is pretty tough. Clemson was tough. When that 30,000 in Syracuse get going, that's tough. But for the sake of this, I'm gonna go with the RAC, right, Jerry? I had the opportunity to play in the RAC as a high school kid, and for 4 years that I played in there, it was always a sellout, and it was always loud. It was always packed. It was a great atmosphere. The 4 years that I played in the RAC as a collegiate athlete supersedes that high school atmosphere by thousands. Same amount of people, but the energy that goes into that is a lot different, man. And you feel it. Forget 60 minutes on the clock. You feel it when you're the visiting team on a bus and you just pull up and you park in the back and you got to walk in. You feel it when the security, when the building is just they set up the concession stands. You smell a popcorn, right? Because you on the court. You got the security lining up, everybody taking it. You feel it then before a fan even enters the building. I think that building is a great place to play. The fans, the way it's constructed, they're on top of you. And I like it. I like it as a player, as a coach. It's a good building.
All right, we got time for two more quick ones. Go ahead, Steve.
You know, you guys obviously follow your alma maters very closely. I'm curious how you view the season so far and how it has unfolded. Maybe Jay Mitch start?
Yeah, I mean, like I told Jerry, man, I watch every game. If I don't watch it live, I'm pulling it on Synergy or Sports Code. It's exciting. Obviously, the buzz is in the air in Piscataway right now with those two. Let's talk about it. First round draft picks, lottery picks, whatever you want to call those guys, just because that's something new, right? That's something that's never been done at Rutgers. So the buzz is there. We got to taper our expectations a little bit because they're still freshmen at the end of the day. They're still going through the process. But to have those guys on a Rutgers campus when they can be at those Dukes and Kentuckys and Blue Bloods of the world, it's pretty cool to see as a fan, right? playing in those, those tournaments in Vegas during Thanksgiving, and being in the big games, like it's new, and hopefully it's a new trend, right? Now I'm gonna do a little recruiting, and then now we can get more top 10, 20, 30 players in the country to come to Rutgers. I mean, in a great league, great conference, and let's not forget the education piece, right? You can get a great education from there if that's 4 years or 2 years. It's a great place to be, great place to live, and the communities behind them. So it's fun to see, man, and being a former player, I'm excited, because I transferred from Florida, right? University of Florida won a national championship. And then when I came to Rutgers, man, it wasn't cool. It was not cool to go to Rutgers. So I want to thank and say that I helped lay that foundation there, because I knew the vision, right? I knew this place could be special. And obviously they got the right man at the helm and Coach Peichel. And I'm super excited for the future of Rutgers basketball.
That's great. Marcus?
Man, for Seton Hall, it's been a lot of turnover, right? We got 10 new guys. That's hard. Even in my freshman year, when we brought in 4 freshmen, it was hard to integrate 4 freshmen into a team that just came off a Sweet 16 run. And we know the issues that my team had in my freshman year with that. So trying to take 10 new guys and, having it work this early, it would have been a blessing, And let's be honest, right now, it's not working the way that I know Shaheen would like it to work, and the way our fan base would like it to work. But the hope is through attrition, over time that we figure this thing out. I think Shaheen has proven himself worthy the opportunity to have time to work it out. He's dug himself out of holes before. He was able to get St. Peter's going. He had us playing well when he had his guys, and now he just brought in 10 new ones. And I think, by end of January, February, we should probably be hitting our stride. But that doesn't take away this Saturday. Like this Saturday, I expected to play their best game today.
All right, that's good stuff, guys. Last question. We got 2 minutes. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and how your experience, playing in college ball influences the way you coach now. Jay Mitch, you're an assistant coaching D1 at Mercer. Marcus, you're coaching high school at Immaculate Conception, really good program in North Jersey. Why'd you get into coaching? What is it about your experience that you're imparting on your players right now? Real quick, Marcus, why don't you start us off?
So I actually got into coaching because I tore my patella tendon when I came home from Australia, and then I immediately was coaching at Fairleigh Dickinson for 3 years. And then I've been in high school ever since. And the one thing that I learned from college, honestly, is patience and understanding the game a little bit better. And that's kind of what I try to impart on these guys, to let them know that time does run out. You don't always have a tomorrow to get things done. Like the immediacy of the game in college is what I try to impart on these guys in high school. And now I haven't been coaching in high school for the past 11 years or so, 2 as a head coach and the last 9 with Jimmy. I think the success that we've had over at Immaculate Conception is really translating into making players better. So right now, I'm coaching at Immaculate. I'm a general manager for a security company as a day job, and part-time, actually, I work as the replay director at Madison Square Garden. So
okay.
I do all the Knick games and the college games. So if ever you're at the game, I tell the replay operators what replay to show, to show the fans and the coaches. So I'm very much involved in basketball. Shameless plug, Jerry, if I may.
Sure.
I'm having a toy coat and hoodie drive. I'm going to do a free basketball clinic at Immaculate Conception on December 21st, ages 8 to 13. I post everything on my social media. Coach Toney-El on Instagram, Marcus Toney-El on Facebook. And everything I do is under the elite experience. And I just want to find different ways to continue to give back and use basketball as that vehicle to reach different kids.
That's not shameless. We're glad we could put that in there, and I'll get that in my article too, Marcus. Thanks for doing that. All right, Jay Mitch, you got a minute. Tell us about what's going on at Mercer and what you're bringing from your old days on the banks.
Yeah, no. I mean, just to sum it all up, man, I just wanted to help serve and give back, right? I had people in front of me do that. So my whole focus was, hey man, leave it better than I found it. Just help the next generation. Been with some great coaches, and was real fortunate enough to get into coaching as a GA for Tom Crean at the University of Georgia. And then I was at Stetson University for 4 years with Donnie Jones, who was my assistant coach at Florida, and left last year to become an assistant in the G League for the Birmingham Squadron. And now head coach Ryan Ritter got this job here in April, gave me an opportunity to be back in the college banks. And I just think that fit me because it's still pure, and I could still impact kids. And that was my biggest reason why I wanted to get into coaching. And now I'm here at Mercer, just trying to help build this program back to 2014, I believe, when they beat Duke in the tournament.
Right.
The buzz in Macon was ridiculous. And this is a gem. And another free plug, if you got some players, man, that want to come down to the SoCon, let's talk about it afterwards.
Absolutely.
We love tough Northeast guards, and we're looking to build this thing and just have fun doing it.
You'll be in good hands with coached by Marcus Toney-El and Jonathan Mitchell. Fellas, thanks so much for coming on Jersey Jump Shot, sharing your memories of this great rivalry. We appreciate you. Good times, right, guys? And you still got a hand in the game. Love it. Thanks so much, fellas, and hope to see you soon. Enjoy the game Saturday.
Thanks for having us, Jerry, man, and go Hall.
Jerry, thanks for the opportunity. Steve, nice to meet you as well, and let's go Knights.
All right, that's good stuff. Thank you, fellas. Steve, you got to love it.
Steve.
Brings back a lot of good memories, right?
Great.
I mean, we watch these guys. We love their games, and now it's great to hear from them all these years later. So let's continue on with the show. Let's talk about the real quick about the rivalry. I want to just mention a couple things about the banquet. First of all, it's not going to be held this year. We 3 years running, we had the Seton Hall Rutgers Seton Hall event, was really well attended and well received. But the front office, the group that ran it, they just didn't want to continue with it for various reasons. And, Steve, it's not an easy thing to pull off. Like a lot of it is you're at the mercy of how good these teams are. When it was relaunched in 2021, it was after a year where the game wasn't held, and it was kind of celebrating it coming back. And Rutgers had just beaten Purdue, #1, and Seton Hall had beaten number 7 Texas, and enthusiasm was sky high. And it's hard when one or two teams are struggling to do. This isn't Duke, Carolina, where like people are just going to buy tickets because. So it was sort of a challenge to sustain it. I do think there's some interest in bringing it back at some point. We're not going to say it's permanently shelved. John Fanta and I do have an interest in bringing it back, but there won't be a banquet this year, hopefully next year. But this was the kind of fun we had at that banquet, reminiscing with the old players who it still runs in their blood, and that was why it was so cool to hear from those guys. I got two stories for you. All right. The Rutgers Seton Hall trophy that both guys mentioned, it's so cool. It's made of boardwalk planks that were discarded during Sandy. And Kevin Lawrence, we got to mention him. This was his thing. He did this soup to nuts. The trophy looks even better now, Steve, than it ever did. It's gotten a facelift with the really nice the logos on it. I have a story about it that's funny. So each year the winner gets engraved on the back, right? The school name and the year. And one year, Rutgers, after they won, forgot to do the engraving. So Seton Hall gets the trophy after winning the next time, and it's their turn to engrave it, their name in it and year. And they realized that Rutgers forgot to engrave their win. This was a couple years ago. This was fairly recently, right? The thing's somewhat new, but this is really recently. And there was some discussion at Seton Hall, like, what should we do with this? And like, I don't think it was ever seriously considered that they would just skip Rutgers and skip their engraving entirely. If this was like 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, that might have happened. But like I think both sides, administrators, coaches on both sides like and respect each other now. That wasn't the case for a long time. The other possibility was like getting Rutgers and Seton Hall doing the engraving for Rutgers, but really small. having a really small one, like that he was hard to read in the middle. And they didn't do that. They did the right thing, but they made Rutgers come get the trophy and engrave it themselves. And then Seton Hall went and added their engraving. So that's a funny little insider story. I got one more for you. I have 80 of these, okay? But we could talk for 3 hours. But one more, Steve, and that is one of the most infamous episodes in the Rutgers-Seton Hall series was a triple technical foul called by Jim Burr at the rack. Most of the nuttiest things have happened at the rack, right, in this series because it's like a cauldron where the emotions are running super high. The Jim Burr, Herb Pope headbutts Eli Carter at the scorer's table, right in front of everybody. And Jim Burr calls a technical foul, but doesn't eject Pope from the game. Like, when does a guy have a headbutt and not get ejected from the game? So, whatever. The upshot is Pope stays on the court. He subsequently hits a three-pointer that helps Seton Hall win the game. So afterwards, when there's a controversial officials call, the MO is for someone in the media, or one representative in the media, to be a pool reporter and ask the chief official a couple questions, right? Get them on the record. It doesn't happen often, but it's an option that is available at times. So I was volunteering to be the pool reporter, and Jason Baum, you remember Jason, great guy, was the Rutgers SID. Sure. He's now at Tennessee, I believe. So I said to Jason, I'll handle the pool. I'll interview Burr about the headbutt and the lack of ejection. And Jason goes, I'll do it. And so he did it himself. He was so steamed that he did it himself. And so he interviews Burr. Burr says a bunch of things, including the crazy line that it wasn't a great headbutt, it was just a little tap. Right? How now we're judging the ferocity of headbutts. So Baum comes back, and with all these quotes, including that line, which now lives in infamy, right? And so if I recall this correctly, a couple of his colleagues were like, look, you have to edit that out when you send the quotes to the media contingent. You can't have that in there. That's a crazy quote. And Baum was like, oops, I just sent it all. Like he wanted that out there. Just how ridiculous Burr was. He's like, oops. So we got the quote and the rest is history. So a couple little inside baseball stories that this series always seems to produce, Steve. And you know that something's going to happen Saturday, right?
Can't wait. I mean, you're just waiting for, and especially at the rack, right? I mean, it's going to be great.
9 straight sellouts. So this game still means a lot, even though, the juice is lower this year because Seton Hall is really struggling. Rutgers is trying to find themselves. 9 straight sellouts tells the story, and a big Fox national stage. All right, we'll come back to that game, breaking down that game in a minute. Give me some thoughts. Well, let me talk about let's start with Princeton-Monmouth. You were there last night. Good annual series. A quick word on this game. What did you think? Princeton wins 71-67 at Jadwin, and there's a little controversy at the end, right? Tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good game. It was 25 lead changes. I mean, you don't see that very often. The teams went back and forth. But at the end, Monmouth down 2, ball in Abdi Bashir's hands. Abdi scored 26. Xavier Lee scored 23 for Princeton. So the two best players had good games. And he's trying to race the ball up court. There's about eight seconds left. Race the ball up along the sideline, gets bumped, steps out of bounds. They don't call a foul. So unfortunately, you felt like you got robbed at the ending of that game. Monmouth should have had a chance to at least tie or win it. They didn't. Princeton goes to the line, hits 2 free throws, wins 71-67. But it was a really good game. And I think what you see Princeton starting to find itself. They're getting ready for Ivy League play. I think to be 8-4, I'm sure before the season they thought they were going to be better than this. But they're evolving, and they have some really good players. So they're going to be right in the hunt right to the end. I think Monmouth, this was a gritty performance by them. They're 1-10. So they needed this. This was a good game for them, and I just think that it's a performance they can build on. Like every mid-major, you're just trying to get to conference play, and I think this is a team that could win some CEA games.
Yeah, it's a good showing, I think, for Monmouth to be right in there with the Princeton team and Jadwin.
Yeah,
that is very good. It's been 9 days since we recorded a podcast. The schedule was a little weird this week, but last week I went down to St. Joe's and covered Princeton's game there, and Princeton was great. It was the best game they played all year. They look like the team that I think a lot of us expected to see this year, just surgical on offense. And St. Joe's is a good team, and St. Joe's has talent. And they have a really good backcourt, including our old friend Derek Simpson, who played, as it was a key contributor to Rutgers the past 2 years, Jersey guy at Lenape High School in Mount Laurel. And Princeton was awesome. Xavier Lee had a triple-double, 18 points, 13 rebounds as a point guard, and 10 assists. And I know he played well, the really good showdown of guards last night, right?
Xavier Lee, good, and they gave Xavier Lee a ball pregame at center court for the triple-double. So they made a nice show of it.
How was that showdown between Abdi Bashir and Xavier Lee? Were they defending each other, or did other people draw the assignments on the other end?
No, they were not. So Monmouth's point guard Madison Durr spent most of the night guarding Lee.
Okay.
Abdi is not Monmouth's best defender by a long shot. So as the second half got on, Blake Peters was the guy on him. He was dogging them everywhere, up and down the court. So that was their plan. They doubled him when they could, but it really turned out to be a nice. They didn't go head to head, but they both played well, and it really made it a very interesting game.
Princeton looked really good at St. Joe's, and if that's they're playing Rutgers next week. Next weekend, the 21st at the Rock. We'll preview that game in the next show. We'll have a Princeton player on as our guest, and maybe another special guest for that one. If the Princeton team that played at St. Joe's shows up against Rutgers, they're going to be a handful because they shoot. All those guys can nail threes, and so Monmouth next. What is Fairfield? A quick word on that. They're hosting Fairfield. They're finally going to have a home game.
Right. So 11 straight road games or games away from home to start the season. That's brutal. And King Rice has talked about that a lot, about needing to get some money this year, 5 guarantee money games. But finally they'll get a home game, and that's tough on fans. You're waiting to December 21st for your first home game. So hopefully they get a good crowd. There's no students on campus, so we'll see. But that's a big moment, for Monmouth.
All right, so I'm glad, and we expect Princeton-Monmouth series to continue, right, Steve? And definitely,
yes, both sides seem committed to doing that. Yeah.
Great Jersey game. As long as they keep playing it, we'll keep covering it for sure. I'm glad you were there last night in Jadwin. All right, now quick word on the last game for Rutgers and Seton Hall. Rutgers beats Penn State. We're just coming off of that as we tape this podcast. My thoughts on that. So Rutgers wins the game 80-76. And Rutgers didn't just win this game. They played well. It was a well-played game for them all the way around. I want to start by saying that, re-emphasizing that crowds matter. Rutgers coach, Penn State's coach Mike Rhodes said basically in so many words, his team was intimidated by the atmosphere. This was their first road game of the season, Penn State. And, they looked a little rattled, especially in that first half when Rutgers built a 15-point lead. The Rutgers crowd was great. It felt like February in there. It was like the vintage rack crowd, right? And the students stood the whole game. Place shook. It was deafening at times. And I write about crowds, Steve. I know people have mentioned this to me over the years. Why do you write, tweet, whatever, emphasize crowds so much, critique crowds? Because they matter, man, especially in college basketball. When they're right on top of the court, like crowds sway outcomes. They intimidate opponents. They influence officiating. They motivate the home team, and sometimes they can, if the crowd is, turning on its team and booing or whatever, it can rattle the home team. It can get in guys' heads. So I think crowds matter enormously in this sport. The Big Ten, you've seen it over and over again. It's like Jekyll and Hyde when teams go on the road. You got to defend home court. Rutgers had to win that game, and they got a big assist from their fans, and I expect another one, on Saturday for the fans to be there when Seton Hall comes to town. Ace Bailey, 15 points, 15 rebounds, 2 blocks, his best defensive and rebounding effort of the season. This is the Ace Bailey Rutgers needs. Steve, I have a real problem with the way basketball, not just college basketball in general, is portrayed on social media and highlights, because it's all like three-pointers and dunks. And like, that's not necessarily what wins basketball games. I mean, Rutgers doesn't need Ace Bailey putting together a mixtape or an NBA, highlight prospectus. They need him to rebound and defend. He's going to score some points. It's more important that he gets double-digit rebounds and plays good defense than that he scores 25 points for Rutgers. And last night was case in point, where Bailey had his hard hat on. And this is a great thing for Rutgers. The guy has such upside with his physical tools as a rebounder and a defender. He had his hard hat on, and I think that's the biggest reason why Rutgers won this game. So, like, that's something that Steve Peichel is going to be thrilled about. But this is the Bailey that RU needs. That was one takeaway. Another one, Rutgers used P.J. Hayes and Tyson Acuff as shooters. They spaced the court. These guys are shooting specialists. They spaced the court, moved the ball, got these guys open looks. Very good ball movement, patient, unselfish ball movement. Got open looks for their sharpshooters, for people who that's their role. And like, they're not helping you if you're not getting them open looks. And so they did. They each had 2 threes. That's 12 points. P.J. Hayes and Tyson Acuff. That's well more than the margin of victory. So I thought that was a huge development, how well Rutgers passed and shared the ball. And it was almost entirely, like 85% of their shots were in the paint or three-pointers. None of this long, low percentage two-point shots. That's inefficient offense. And Steve Peichel, I think there was a real point of emphasis and got through to his guys about that. So a well-coached, well-disciplined game on both sides for Rutgers. And Steve, as you know, they needed to post a quality win.
Yeah, and again, this comes down to Steve Peichel, right? The things you just talked about, right? Finally getting through to a young kid about the importance of defending, of rebounding, and that's going to be the most important thing. And coming up with strategies to get your players open looks, to make that offense flow better. So again, I think you're seeing Steve Peichel's fingerprints on this team now as they move forward, and are going to be, and seem to be playing some better games now.
It felt like a breakthrough. Now we'll see. It's a young team. They're going to have snafus and what the heck games. It's a young team. You're going to get that. Okay, there's going to be more weird losses, and there's going to be stirring wins. But it felt like a little bit of a breakthrough, or at least a significant step forward for a young team learning how to win games against good teams. All right, and then Seton Hall. Look, Oklahoma State was just trouncing them in the first half at the Rock, and it was just dreadful to see when Oklahoma State is not that good. I mean, they finished behind Seton Hall in the Charleston Classic. But then you saw a little bit of a spark in the second half for the Pirates, where they actually got some offense going. They played with some pace. They had a zone press that they seemed to thrive off of, and it worked, and it loosened guys up and got going. Is that something they can build on? Sheen Holloway has to figure that out. But I did think it did feel like that the 3 sophomores that Seton Hall has were their best players, right? Isaiah Coleman, who's now really coming on as the go-to guy that we thought he would be. Scotty Middleton hit all 4 of his 3-pointers. Looked like the player who closed the season at Ohio State red hot last year. Garway Duell, 9 assists, and really seemed to thrive pressuring the ball in that zone press. 3 sophomores. These are the guys you got to watch for Seton Hall this year. Look, if they're not going to make the NCAA tournament, if they're not going to have a postseason, can you develop these 3 guys who have a lot of potential? Can you develop them? Can you keep them? Can that be a nucleus you can win with next year with a couple pieces? That's a thing, I think. But in the immediacy, those 3 guys played well in the second half. And so it was something in what seems like a lost season at 5-5. They're looking at possibly their first losing non-conference record since 1983, PJ Carlissimo's first year. It was something maybe to build on. And Seton Hall's crowd, I mentioned this again, to their credit, it wasn't a huge crowd, but the crowd that was there, I think, really had a lot to do with emphasizing the positive, getting these guys in the right mindset, cheering them on in the second half. They could have left or sat on their hands or whatever, but they stayed and I think helped get them going. So some signs of life there, Steve, but again, a loss. And so Seton Hall enters the Rutgers game, really struggling. Rutgers finally breaks out of their slump. Turning the page to the game now. Rutgers, Seton Hall, real quick. I know we've gone long today. There's so much to talk about this week, right? What do you want to see from each side, Steve? First, Seton Hall, the visitor. What do you want to see from them as they go into the Lions' Den?
Well, I think what you want to see from Seton Hall is the defensive intensity, because honestly, without that, what are they, right? I mean, they're not all of a sudden going to become incredible sharpshooters, right? But one thing you can control is your intensity on that end of the court, and that's what Seton Hall has to bring every game. That has to be their calling card now, and I would like to see that at the rack. In terms of Rutgers, I think you need to see exactly what you saw from Ace Bailey in the last game, right? You need to see what he did against Penn State. And when you have Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey putting up those kind of numbers and you can fill in around that, I mean, you're going to beat a lot of teams. So I think that consistency at both ends of the court for those guys is what you want to see, particularly Ace Bailey.
Kind of, to put a fine point on it, yes, and those are similar to my thoughts. For Seton Hall, they have to be physical and aggressive, not just physical and sitting back, but physical and aggressive with Rutgers. Rutgers hasn't always been physical. This team hasn't always been tough and gritty. They were last night. They haven't always been. So Seton Hall needs to test that, but test it with an aggressive edge, not a passive edge. And Seton Hall's bigs have to show up. They have gotten very little inside this season at all. And so, Rutgers isn't dominant inside, but they have some guys who can play. And if Ace Bailey's playing inside, that's a force to be reckoned with. Seton Hall's bigs have to give them something. They have to be physical and aggressive. Does Shaheen Holloway want to sort of press and trap and try to get his guys untracked on the other end to get some cheaper buckets? It's a decision he has to make. It probably will. He probably will try to do a little more of that, having seen how effective it was. And he probably should go maybe a little smaller and quicker at times if that's going to be his best group. But they're going to need something out of their bigs. And that, again, some physical and aggressiveness is huge, I think, for the Pirates. And that goes for both ends, not just defense, but offense too. They're going to have to attack. Rutgers, try not to put on a show. Try to play team basketball. Team basketball is what's going to win for Rutgers. It was so much more impressive the way they beat Penn State with the team game than the way they beat Notre Dame with Dylan Harper scoring 9 million points and Ace Bailey making some brutally tough shots. Team basketball. Don't try to put on a show. Rutgers went to Kennesaw State and some guys tried to put on a show and they got punched in the mouth. For Rutgers, continue to play team basketball, and that is the ticket for them because they do have a lot of talent on this team. It's a little sad, Steve, that there's only three guys in the game Saturday who played in it last year. JaMychal Davis for Rutgers, Isaiah Coleman, and Dylan Adaiwusu for Seton Hall. That's it. There's not a lot of institutional memory here. It is kind of sad. The game used to be, the rivalry was like in the blood of the players. It's just not that way anymore. You think they know what it means. There is a trophy. Some of these guys are from the area. But that part we've kind of lost a little bit, and it is a little sad. The game still means a lot to fans, and it's going to have a national stage for the first time in years, a long time. Fox National, Big Fox, is airing this game. 3:00 Saturday. You just don't know. The road team has won in a big surprise the last 2 years. Rutgers seems to be rightfully a significant favorite at home. But, something weird usually happens in these games. And when it does, we'll be there to chronicle it and talk about it on the next Jersey Jump Shot. Thank you so much to Jonathan Mitchell, to Marcus Toney-El. The trip down memory lane was awesome. So glad those guys still have a hand in the game as coaches. And hey, these games, the memories last a lifetime, right? For fans, for the players, that's what it's all about. So Jersey Jump Shot, what's more Jersey Jump Shot than Rutgers, Seton Hall, and the Garden State Hardwood Classic, a trophy made of boardwalk planks. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back. Steve and I will be at the rack, and we'll be back next week to chop it up. Whatever happened, see you then, and thank you, and enjoy what is one of the best rivalries in college basketball.